What's going on, guys? This is Donald Russell here with DRP Fitness and Health. And today we're going to be talking about how to make money as a personal trainers. With that, we're going to talk about three different factors or three different phases of how you make your money. We have the big box gyms. We're thinking LA Fitness, Planet Fitness, Equinox, things of that in your area or your state. Those big box gyms, along with the certain institutions like the country clubs in your area, places that have studios or they have their own gym inside of their actual country club or inside of their condominiums. Those are places that we can make money. And then we're going to talk about the private studios and then having your own clientele base. And what I mean by private studios, those are privately owned. Those are a little bit more of a niche style gym. They have their way of how they like to train, so you just kind of follow the system. And also, you know, if you have your own clientele base, bringing them to that type of studio, or just having your own clientele base in general from building from those private studios. And then lastly, we got how do we own our own studio and some of the issues, some of the pros and cons, not only from owning your own studio and how to make money in that part, but also from each stage of where you want to go. So we're going to talk a little bit about everything. So let's jump right into it. All right, so we're going to jump into that big box gym first. So the two main concepts when working in these big box gyms or some of these smaller institutions like the country club is going to be salary and sales. These are typically going to be how you get paid, and most of it is going to be banking off of the sales you make. But if you're a first-time trainer, this is definitely the area you want to go into, because you have to remember this is more so about your experience. It's not how much money you make. You're going to be a terrible trainer when you first start. Everybody's a terrible trainer. You make a lot of mistakes. You kind of see where you tend to have your strength or your weakness in. So this is kind of where you get started. And you can make anywhere from the range of 30 to 60,000. I know that's a huge number. We're talking $30,000 difference. But between these two are probably, with this one in particular, the big box gym, that's probably going to be where you can make those major leaps from just a normal personal trainer, and then you can jump yourself up to a manager or, you know, floor manager, whatever it is, but it's going to be really based off sales. There's not a lot of room to kind of grow when you hit a certain point. More so is about the money. So we're talking 20 to 40% commissions off of people that you can get signed up for certain gyms. Typically, they could care less about who they are. You don't have that type of relationship with them. It's hundreds of people coming into those gyms. So you're just trying to get them running as much as possible. But some of the pros and cons are you have less control in a dedicated schedule. So when you're first starting off, they're typically telling you when you're going to work, how long you're going to work, and you're probably going to get a crappy payroll, or you're probably going to get paid crappy with it. But that's the whole point of you have to start somewhere. So and then we're also looking for, this is a numbers game. So it's just about sell, sell, sell. How much sales can we get? But again, remember, this is kind of your learning. If there's anything I would say from this one, this is kind of that learning phase. How well, or what do we need to work on to make ourselves a better personal trainer? Learning the system, learning how it works, get a chance to understand how it feels to go and talk to people, randomly going up to talk to people. Majority of the time, the manager or whoever it is that typically runs the gym or who's the floor manager, they're going to have particular clients that they put you with. So you're not going to be able to actually talk to that person until you see them on your schedule. So it's the hard work is pretty much done. You're just there to maintain and keep them. And if you're being respectable, you guys are actually pushing for their actual goals and you're keeping them safe, typically it's not a problem with keeping them. But again, we're talking from salaries anywhere from 10 to 15 bucks an hour, and that's just how it starts. Some you may get some commissions off of, but I wouldn't bank on that. So those are the big box gyms. All right, now let's jump us into the private studio. This is actually where I started. So coming from playing sports my entire life, played football. Once I finished playing sports, the guy who was actually training me for years, I ended up just becoming a trainer in their studio. They were low on trainers. So he kind of, helped me become a personal trainer. I knew how their system worked. I knew how he liked to train athletes. So I was able to jump right into it. I was a former athlete as well. So I kind of understood the foundation of what it meant to be an athlete, the physical component, the mental component. It was just trying to learn the actual science and training style of learning the industry so I can apply those two together. So we're talking private studios. This is someone you probably know. They only own smaller studio, or we got smaller gyms. That's more so that's based out of the community. It's probably one or two. Some may be franchise, but it's really more of that boutique style gym. So we're talking about a salary range, yearly salary range of anywhere from 40 to 75K. Again, majority of this is based on the pricing package for that gym in particular. So if you can make anywhere from, majority of the time is anywhere from 50, like we said, 40 to 75, you'll probably be in that middle range of 50 to 60, but I like to give you just a bigger range. You're taking less risk because you don't have any overhead. You have your own clientele. You kind of build that relationship. We're talking repetitive clients. We've been with them for a couple of years now. They probably came with us from that big box gym, or anybody that you receive from this place here. Probably the owner is going to be feeding you clientele. You kind of keep them for a while, and we can say your actual relationship with them can be anywhere from 1 to 5 years. I've been a personal trainer now for 10 years. I have 2 clients that's going on 10 years with me. I probably average anywhere from 4 to 8 years. So you will probably keep those clienteles a lot of the time. So some of the pros and cons, you control your own schedule for this when you're training at a private studio, which is good. You build your clientele base. You now can control when you want to work. And you can also have some private clients on the outside. This is probably where the best position is, best phase is, regardless of working at the big box gym or owning your own private studio. Here we can either work full-time or we can have it to where we have it part-time. We have a clientele base. So if we need to work just part-time, working in the morning or just working in the afternoon, we got a good rate going on. We can make anywhere from 40 or 60% commission on each session. Or I shouldn't say commission. You can use that term, but you're making probably half, anywhere from 40 to 60% per session, depending on the pricing package that the gym owner set. So we're getting a little bit more bang for our buck here. Like we said, this is more of that niche base. We have a certain style that we like to do, certain way we like to train. And then we can also understand that our clientele is just based on repetitive clients, people that we've built relationship with. And this can also be, the relationship building can be what moves you over to the private, to the private studio when you want to actually own one, or if you actually want to make one. But again, this is private or full-time. You're taking less risk. You control your schedule. You're making anywhere from, like we said, 50 to 60,000. If we want to progress to anything higher, this is probably where we have to take more of that manager role. And then again, we jump back into the sales. Now we're a little bit more understanding because we're building a relationship with a lot of people, and now you're trying to match them with certain people. So you're a little bit understanding of the clientele, what's their needs, trying to help them. It's not that much of a big box gym, so you don't have hundreds of people coming in at one time. We're dealing with a little bit less. It's a community driven. You also want to make sure that reputation is going to be a positive thing. So we can push it anywhere from that 75 range when we started having a more of a bigger role in these private studios, all right? So, like I said, this is probably that middle ground. This is where I started. I was in this phase probably 6 years before I actually opened my own studio, 7 years before I actually opened my own studio. So you can make money off there. You can actually, can live off this. You just have to understand of building relationships, having that positive reputation, and then how to understand the seasons of when clients are coming in and they're leaving, so you can be prepared for that financially. All right, lastly, owning our own private studio. Salary-wise, typically it depends on you, but in my opinion, in my experience, you can make anywhere from 60 to 100K yearly, but understand what you're getting yourself into. You have all the risk from rent, expenses, equipment, everything. Liability, you take 100% of the profits, but you also deal with 100% of the expenses. So understand that. Overhead and equipment is probably going to be your two biggest pieces of expenses when you first start off and open your own studio. And then when you get more and more, you start understanding the business side of owning your own studio, then you'll have your trainers that you bring into it, which now payroll will probably be, whether it's independent contractors or you're paying them on a salary, payroll is going to be your biggest expense. But until then, understanding the sales process and understanding the marketing scheme behind owning your own private studio. This is 100% a headache. Pros to it, you control and manage your income, which is good. You do not, and I'm gonna be very particular with this, because a lot of people say, oh, well, now I control my own schedule. Your schedule controls you. You have to be at work. This phase, which is why I said this is probably the best phase, or the more comfortable phase, I should say, you were able to control your schedule a little bit better when you're working in that private studio. You work when you want. Maybe you have that second job. This is just that side hustle for you to make a couple quick bucks. Or you can even have that private clientele base that you is going to their home, random park. Some of them sometimes, which you got to be careful, but you can sneak into that big box gym and work out with them, but you're still getting a payment off of that. So you don't have that much of a risk, except getting kicked out of a gym. But owning your own private studio, the liabilities and the risk we have to understand. It's still about client building, so we still want to make sure that we have that relationship with that clientele, building that clientele from that private, that big box gym to that private studio, to now you own your own studio, you have that relationship with them. Some will come with you and some won't. That's just the way of the industry. Things change in people's lives, so sometimes they won't be able to come with you, unfortunately, but it's understanding how to go out and get those sales and get those type of clientele to come with you. And then lastly, it comes back to that numbers game. Everything is about selling. Of course, you still want to make sure you have that relationship with that clientele in any of these phases. And this first one, they're a little bit more just feeding you people. So it's just about getting the sales and just getting however many people they can rotate in. But here we want to understand your reputation is going to be key. So it's a numbers game. You want to understand how much people you need to cover certain expenses, or to cover those risks, or the equipment or the overhead, whatever it takes to kind of run your own studio. But it goes back to that numbers game. You have to understand that. You have to really jump into the financial books. You have to understand the marketing scheme behind it. You have to understand what can you do on your schedule that can get you to make the most bang for your buck as far as bringing in profits. That's going to be huge for you. So this is the 3 phases of how you can make money as a personal trainer. Like we said, 40 to 60K or 30 to 60K in that big box gym, starting off with just getting the experience as a personal trainer. 45 to 75K with that private studio, building your own clientele base, controlling your schedule a little bit, working part or full time. You're talking about 40 to 60% of that commission. And then owning your own private studio, 60 to 100K, minus the expenses, the overhead, equipment, sales process, and marketing. You take more of a liability and a risk, major liability and a risk. And then understanding that sometimes your schedule will control you, but you do what's best to actually make it, being able to flip that. Takes time, takes some years to kind of get that experience and that understanding. You will run through a lot of obstacles, but that's why you're here. Just keep moving forward. Even where I am now, I run through tons of obstacles, things I've always researched and try to plan ahead. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You just keep moving forward. Even if you're falling, we're falling forward. That's all that matters. So if you have any questions, leave it in the comments in the box below. We'll try to attack those questions and help you guys out, especially if we're talking about owning our own private studio. All right.